Well, welcome everyone to this, our final session of Living Sufism for the year. I confess I'm a little nervous about it, and I haven't really been feeling much that kind of thing, the little bit of nerves or edginess, since the first one, going back, 6 months or so. But there it is. Today we'll be offering, the three of us, myself and Puran and Suzanne, will be offering some brief reflections on what it is that has happened over the last 6 months, perhaps, each in our own fashion as usual. And then we will have an opportunity for a more extended conversation with Pir Elias for the latter portion of today's Living Sufism. So welcome. Well, how to start this, huh? Well, going back to when we started several months ago, among the first words that were spoken was, imagine your beginning. Well, how do we do that? We have to start somewhere. Where do we start? We start before. Before what? Well, quoting something again from Pir Elias, before our awareness of awareness. I'm going to provide two different little descriptions of what that might mean. The first from Longchenpa, who said, within the expanse of spontaneous presence is the ground for all that arises, empty in essence, continuous by nature. It has never existed as anything whatsoever, yet arises as anything at all. It has never existed as anything whatsoever, yet arises as anything at all. Or from Ibn Arabi, it is not meant, he said, it is not meant that you are something that exists, or your attributes something that exists, but it is meant that you never have been nor will be. For you are neither ceasing to be nor still existing. You are neither ceasing to be nor still existing. Well, we're starting in the deep end, huh? It is there where they point that is the birthplace of original you. Now I'm going to meander a bit here, and I hope you'll bear with me. This is, of course, we'll get to the idea of stories later, but the truth is this is my version of a story about a story. So there is a first moment of awareness before the call responds to itself and comes into consciousness. It is in this moment of becoming aware of anything other that I become aware of a me. I am in parts and in whole only by virtue of all that of which I become aware. This manifestation of consciousness at this most primary level of awareness, well, this is wonder. This is the unconditional wow. Not the wow that you and I will have later when we look at a blue sky or a sunset or a tree or a leaf or our beloved. No, this is the unconditional wow. This first moment of awareness, this is an expression of the union we will eventually experience with Ishkala Mabhudallah, the ultimate union of love, lover, and beloved. Those become our words. Only let us just for now call it wondering, wanderer, and wonder. And what wonders open, what wonders unfold. Hence, from wonder into wonder, existence opens. There we go. And now, wonder of wonders, we get to tell stories. Because beyond that moment of initial and initiatic awareness, that first wow, the mystery of duality begins to find expression. It is the nature of this mystery to know itself. Thence comes forth the need to ask who, what, why, when, where? And the storyteller is born to ask and answer those questions over and over and over. Who, why, when, where, and what? Especially what, as in, what the heck is happening? From wonder into wonder, from wow into wow. The wonder of this is that in this individuation, this duality, we discover, as tellers of sacred stories, we can already begin to remember from where we have come. And paradoxically, well, there's that word, it is stories that we will use to get us out of our stories. Another way to view stories about stories is, and I'm going to quote Gary Snyder here, who said, these stories are part of a bigger story that connects us all. Stories are one of the most powerful teachers or providers of paradox in our lives. Paradox teaches us something about ourselves that nothing else can. What is that? You remember in the beginning of the session on paradox, there was a sign, apparently sitting in a forest area, was a sign with arrows pointing in two different directions. And the words, the guidance was this way. An example of paradox is that it is easier for me to sit with the phrase, I am not, I am not, than it is to try to tell you, or more importantly, prove to you who or what I am. You remember, it is all what it seems to be, yet nothing is as it appears? That's a story. It is all what it seems to be, yet nothing is as it appears. As our story unfolds, bewilderment may arise. We may hope so. As we come regularly face to face with challenges to our capacity to comprehend, even in the slightest, just what it is that's going on. In that, we may learn to fully embrace and accept the essential role of paradox. Now, I have to say that in dwelling in a world enriched by paradox, perfection becomes a limitation. Yes. Say that one again. In dwelling in a world enriched by paradox, perfection becomes a limitation. And freedom, I suggest, freedom from that prison of perfection arises in trying to do the most right thing. Trying to do the most right thing, not the right thing, not the best or perfect thing, just in the moment. The most right thing allows a freedom to realize in that moment an expression of pure presence. For as Pir Elias wrote, the beautiful act is an act that fits what a situation calls for. What I've done in these few minutes, and indeed what we've done through the Living Sufism series this year, has perhaps implied the existence of a linear sequence to all this. First, of course, comes the beginning, and then we wonder. So we find a sacred story to answer what we're wondering about, which introduces us to paradox as an essential aspect of life, which teaches us, well, that trying to do the most right thing, not the perfect thing, is how we find expression of presence in our world. That is quite a story. I kind of like it. But truth time, we all know that isn't at all how life really works. For these things are happening in whatever sequence or succession is mysteriously called for in any moment of space-time. We are beginning over and over and over and will continue until we don't. Every breath we take and make is another beginning and ending. And wonder? What is there in this life we live not to wonder at or about? From wonder into wonder, from wow into wow. And that wonder, which is the mystery seeking to know itself, must tell stories to answer all those questions. We tell stories all the time. We live a story and then we change it. It changes us, and then it all changes again. And right here is a great example of paradox. Who's writing this line right now? Who is speaking this? How do I know it's me? Well, I do know it, don't I? But when I try to get to the stuff of who I am, I discover that all that stuff turns out to be, quoting at least one particular astrophysicist, mostly a series of electron clouds all bound together by the rules that govern the entire universe. And as far as having a grip on some of what is happening in my life, what I know, well, even that is suspect. For example, when I see the color red, do I pause to remember that I'm seeing the reflection of red? As the object I'm calling red actually doesn't want me to know its secret and real appearance. So it gives me this camouflage of red to trick me. But we can intuit or infer its true color, but we can't see it. And no matter how still I am sitting or standing, what do I make of the fact that this solid earth I am sitting or standing on so solidly is flying around the sun at a speed of 67,000 miles per hour? Am I not? Are we not also flying at 67,000 miles per hour? When so much of what we have supposed to be in the world cannot unconditionally be depended upon, what do we do? How do we decide? How do we trust? We remember. We remember that our goal in this world is not perfection as some never-ending purpose out there somewhere to be achieved. We remember to take one step at a time and be at ease that the rest will come. That, as Suzanne has pointed to, inner presence, not outer construction. That the most right thing is available all the time, present, ready for us to find and step into. And then finally, we remember beloved community, which has held all of this together, which is inherently existent, all of it, and all of it is inherently existed within. We remember the beloved community, as Pierre Elias suggested in his notes, is not only a beautiful future ideal toward which we are called, but that it's also a reality that is right here, right now. Puran?
Thank you, Isha. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Isha has beautifully brought us back to beloved community. And so here we are on the last island in our island hopping adventure, the island called Whoosh and Wish. And here we are back in beloved community through Whoosh and Wish. These are lovely, fanciful terms. I like to imagine that never before in the history of the mystery has there ever been a spiritual program called Whoosh and Wish. It sounds so playful. And it comes from another note from the Open Path that Pierre Elias issued last October. In the midst of the pandemic, rather than, keeping us focused on the miasma of the story of what's going on, the drama. In the notes from the open path, and in particular, these notes that from October entitled The History of Love, Elias invites us to imagine that the Big Bang, the creation of the universe, was actually a whoosh of generosity. As he said in his notes, here, a universe for you. This is essentially what happened, is this unimaginably vast expanse of energy and matter came into being and continues to come into being in a profusion of generosity that is impossible to comprehend. Everything that is needed by every creature, by every circumstance, is known and provided through this whoosh. And what does the whoosh create? But a wish, a desire for connection to that, a desire for intimacy, for belonging, for the sort of soul-to-soul connection that transcends time and space and arrives us miraculously in a world of union. The whoosh and the wish are parts of the dynamism of the universe in which we live and move and have our being. Lovely ideas, whoosh and wish, things we can relate to almost physically. And how does this bear on beloved community? Well, as in so much of what Elias has offered, the central invitation is to experience the unity of being, the union of being, to get past the sense of I'm a me sitting here full of ideas and desires and needs and wants, and there's like a mall. The world is like a mall where I go and I get the things I need and get rid of the things. That vision of reality is being continually undermined through Sufi teachings, in particular through Elias's work with us. He's inviting us, the simple and perhaps inelegant term is non-dual. Throw away the languaging, get rid of the words, and come to the concept, come to the experience of union. And I want to invite you here and now for a very brief, momentary, actual experience of union. Because one of the ways that we can understand whoosh and wish is to think of them as breathing. Breathing is one thing. When we're breathing, we're doing one thing, even though it has two quite distinct physical characteristics. The inhalation, the exhalation. By the way, I've always thought, that one of the controversies in Sufism is the meaning of the word Sufi, but I've always thought that Sufi means I just thought that rather than thinking that Sufi means wool or pure or this idea or that idea, how about that it's just the sound of union? So just for a few moments, let's have this experience of union. I invite you to close your eyes or lower your eyelids, sit with your feet on the floor, your hands on your lap, and just relax, just relax. Don't worry about anything, don't think about anything, just relax your body. And very gradually and gently become aware of your breathing. Don't breathe in any particular way, just feel how it comes in and goes out. Experience the subtlety, if you can, experience the subtlety of the moment when the inhalation turns into an exhalation. Can you experience the very subtle, the very gentle, almost non-existent moment where inhalation turns into exhalation. If we just sit like this for a minute, just allowing the union of breath to become apparent to us in our bodies, we will have an experience of union. So, whenever the thought occurs that, oh, I can't resolve this duality thing, I still just feel myself as being separate from that, and that as being other than this. Whenever you have that feeling and feel kind of like, I don't get this non dual stuff, stop and recognize that you're already experiencing, living the union that is only possible by breathing in and breathing out. This is not a small example. This is a significant indication because the breath not only exemplifies the whoosh and the wish as one experience, the breath is that experience. Never be able to overestimate the power of just returning to breathing at any moment in our lives. Well, how does this relate to beloved community? Well, in the same way that we can experience our breath as one thing, the same way that the whoosh and the wish really are integral to one another. Can the wish happen without the whoosh? Would the whoosh happen without engendering the wish? The whoosh and the wish are one. In the very same way, one could say that the beloved community and the individual in that community are the same thing. I would go a step further and suggest that there's no such thing as beloved community. Show me. You know, to think of beloved community as something is, I think, an error because it doesn't exist out there. You'll never be able to find it. You'll never be able to definitively delineate it. It doesn't exist until it does. And in my view, the only moment that beloved community exists is when I am the beloved community. When my sense of service is clearly understood and experienced as serving the one this, the this, which is singular. The this is singular. That beloved community implies that there is both this whoosh of generosity from the beloved community, supplying everything you need. You know, I'm one of those believers that God is basically providing everything we need and more that we haven't yet discovered. That whoosh of the beloved community is continually there. But is it there unless and until I feel myself to be in that union, so that there really is no distinction between the community I serve, the service I'm offering, and the one who is serving, because the one who is serving through this service is being served. The whoosh and the wish are one, but they are two different motions. And therefore, we as human individuals must learn this dance of give and receive, and give and receive, and give and receive, as the whoosh and the wish at the center of our lives. Recognizing that this can sound lofty, spiritual, it may be helpful to come to some kind of practical reminder signpost. And by the way, on the web page for Whoosh and Wish, which you can find on the Living Sufism site, there are a list of reminders of touchstones that have come out of the last months. And we might add to that this one from Inayat Khan as providing us a sense of practical direction and how do we realize beloved community. Inayat suggests that the simple mechanism at the heart of beloved community is accept all that is offered, give all that is asked. Obviously, some discernment is necessary, but essentially Inayat Khan is very clear. The central adab, ethos of beloved community is give what is asked of you, receive what is given to you. You know, we always run the risk in these conversations, in these talks of moving into the heavens before we have actually accomplished anything here on earth. So maybe it's helpful to come to the last words in that essay by Elias called The History of Love. A link to it, you'll find a link to it on the webpage. But at the end of it, he says, he suggests that, you know, we might think this is a lofty vision, but it is not a wishful vision. It is evident in the history of the universe, in its boundless generosity and its desire for communion. We're made of it. We're made of its generous and intimate love. Knowing this is true, not just intellectually, but in our bones, in how we experience our becoming moment by moment. Knowing this is true, not just intellectually, but in our bones, in how we experience our becoming moment by moment, can give us the courage to carry on no matter what happens. The force of the entire universe, its mighty whoosh, its piercing whoosh, is always with us. As we move into what will be the final contemplation we have together, I'll share the screen with a brief video that hopefully provides visual expression of what we've been talking about. And that will lead us into a brief meditation. So give me a moment to set up the screen and we'll go from there.
this one, this you, who, this one, this being that you are, that I am, that we be, this being that is in this moment now the one arising, simply is. Who, this one that knows wonder, this one that sees and hears and feels, that moves into and out of wonder. This is you too. Who, you sacred story weaver, you holy being, doing, feeling, inhaling and exhaling all that is and all that is not, leaning in toward the mystery beyond, embracing this and that, while self and other meld, and the most right thing emerges like the dawn mist, dissolving into lightness of being. Still you, who, days continue with whooshes and wishes. Sometimes just to be, lightly, blowing prayers into the wind is all there is. It's all that's needed. This, you, now. Who? I come from one to become many, to become one once again. Oh, my beloveds, love and be loved. Love and be loved, beloveds, for that is what you are. You really are loved. You really are love. And after who, it's time to move and breathe. And I invite you to just raise your shoulders in little circles and open your hands and close your hands and open your hands and close your hands and move and stretch your arms out in a big arc. Stretch them out as far as you can and breathe and breathe. And relax. And now I'd like to invite Puran and Isha to come back onto the screen. And the three of us warmly welcome our dear Pir Elias to join us in this conversation. Pir Elias, welcome, dear.
There I am. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Wonderful to have you with us, Elias. And maybe at this stage, you might offer your perspective on beloved community after these 6 months that we've explored it in this way.
Yeah, well, thanks. Thanks, the three of you, for holding and stirring and guiding this contemplation, this project over these months. From wow into wow, right, Isha? From wow into wow. In fact, this morning, the three of you, all I can say is wow. Wonder into wonders. And you've done so much to deepen our sense of the beloved community that we're part of and that we're an expression of and that we're creating and that is creating us continually. And of course, the whoosh and the wish, these fundamental forces that we can't help but be of, as you all have described it so beautifully, this of becoming. We can feel it moment to moment, can't we? Just this becoming. We don't know what's going to happen next. And this, somehow this innocent generosity to it, it has that quality, doesn't it? Because nothing knows what's going to happen next. And then at the same time, the communion, that this intimacy that we are experiencing even through this peculiar medium here. There still is that. And look what it's in us to, to tune in, to speak and to listen, to find a way of meeting, of finding, of belonging. And this morning, it's morning here, it strikes me that just the very wonder that we're contemplating this, and that over the past 6 months, you've held it so exquisitely, this contemplation, that the universe would do this, that it would come to this, that all of us on the front edge of this moment, curious and enacting the great whoosh and wish, this generosity of becoming and creativity, and all of us dedicated to meeting, to reaching out, to coming closer, to knowing each other, to communion. Perhaps that's the best word. There's been unavoidably a lot of concern, of talk these days of how fragmented civilization is, the world is, our society is, how polarized it is, how much conflict and division that we're experiencing. And yes, that is happening for sure. But I'd like to point, if we're going to try to understand where we are now and what's unfolding here, maybe we can't understand it, but get a hint of this current that we're part of. I think the whoosh and the wish is a good entry into that understanding. And there's something else that strikes me beyond the division and the conflict and the polarization that we're obviously experiencing as a species and as our particular society. And that is, it's something that seems to me so obvious and encouraging, and but that we tend to miss it. And that is the let's put it this way, the enormous global and personal effort to cooperate, to help each other, to do our best not to, well, in terms of COVID, now that we're emerging in fits and starts from this pandemic time, that we're doing our best not to, we've done our best and we continue to not spread the disease. We've worn our masks, we've kept our distance, we've gone through the lockdowns and the vaccine drama, and we've made sacrifices. Everyone has, some much more than others, but there has been this both individual and global effort to care for each other. It's different, isn't it? This is big because it's not as we've done before when a society cooperates through, say, wartime, and everybody gets together and you know, make sacrifices to defend their particular country or ideology. This was different. We weren't fighting each other. Although there was some of that, of course, because we've had a long karmic history of doing that. But in general, we've all been trying to help each other and trying to cooperate. And yes, it's been messy, but it's been a profound schooling for all of us, all across the world, that we have to share the burden. We have to help each other, or it isn't just a matter of self-survival. We began to get it. Oh, we're in this together. All of us, it's a global story. And that's big. That's a powerful lesson for us. And it's one that I think my hope is, and I actually believe that it's not going to be totally forgotten now that we're emerging and we're all going to just enjoy our own little lives again. I have a feeling that something has opened up for us. And now, of course, we're delighted that we can hug, those of us who can feel comfortable hugging or shaking hands. And I shook a man's hand the other day for the first time, and we both hesitated just before our hands touched, and we looked at each other, and I said, "Can we do this?" And yes, and we did. And it was a moment of that touch was real, and it felt different than shaking a hand was a year and a half ago. So I think we can take heart that this is happening. It's that we're part of it, that this isn't just a Pollyanna kind of vision, trying to be optimistic in a hard time. I think something is stirring, and deeply. Our compost has been turned. And we can feel at the heart, because our meditation, especially this morning on this Whoosh and Wish story, I think we can feel that it's at the heart of this too, this generosity, this opening, and this desire for communion, for shaking hands, for hugging, for finding, oh, what does make life worthwhile? Finding this connectivity. And I remember, Puran, a week or so ago when we were first talking about this session, you asked, when I asked you about, okay, what to say, what would you like? And you did mention the word, any practicalities that you can think of now that we're emerging from COVID, and I'm a practical sort as well as a mystical, guilty of mystical flights, let's say. And thinking about that, I returned to this model that my wife and I used for years and years in our cross-cultural work, which in that context was called the model of a bearing witness, the practice of bearing witness. And it's not exactly the perfect title for it, but there are three aspects to bearing witness or to this practice. And I think it's exactly what's called for now as we emerge from our isolations, let's say. And these three aspects are, many of you know this already, show up, ask caring questions, and listen. Those three. And we had, it's interesting, we had a gathering a week or two ago at our house, the first time in a year and a half. And this was a group of 7 of us who have met over the years a few times a year and would have a dinner together and talk. And when we came together a week and a half ago, it was wonderful. We enjoyed being together. And I couldn't help but notice that there was a kind of awkwardness, as if we didn't quite know how to do it. And we were delighted to be with each other, but there was almost a sense of not, someone would say something and then, oh, that would spark something else from someone, and then another one. And there was a kind of almost a cacophony because we'd been a year and a half without contact. And there's so much that went on and so much we felt, and we weren't even sure what was the priority for us to say. And so we kind of stepped on each other's sentences, and we had fun and so on. It wasn't a bad experience, but it did leave a sense of, oh, there's something new we have to learn here or relearn. And that also feeds into this sense of the showing up and asking caring questions and listening, that model. That as we emerge from this isolation, that well, that first aspect of bearing witness is really critical. Show up, be present, come. That's a big one because we've done just the opposite. We haven't been showing up. I mean, we have to open our doors. We have to meet each other. We have to make ourselves available and be present to each other. And that's the key right there, to be present. And then that second aspect, ask caring questions. So how has it been for you? What's happening? Has it been rough? Tell me your story. And that's linked, of course, with the third aspect of listen. And that's what wasn't happening at this dinner gathering. There was too much wanting to be said. And I would suggest that we would do well to, as we show up, and then to ask, instead of trying to express everything that's bubbling and overflowing in us, ask caring questions, be present and listen to others. And in that, there's the wish, isn't it? Maybe showing up is sort of like the wish, but certainly asking caring questions and listening is the wish. It's, okay, I'm here, that making that alchemy of communion possible. And there's a fourth aspect, which isn't something that is that one has to do or be aware of. Well, we can be aware of it. But this fourth aspect is when these three are present and occurring, opportunities for healing naturally arise. And that's what we found in all of our cross-cultural work over the years, is You just show up, ask caring questions and listen. And then something in there that maybe you need to ask more questions, but you're not giving a lot of advice. You're not making a plan for the next 5 years. You're just listening. And then something stirs and healing can arise. Those opportunities begin to show themselves. And perhaps this is how our species will evolve through these kinds of hits that we've had, like this pandemic or wars or climate change, things that are forced conflicts and difficulties and challenges are going to bring us to this place where communion, listening, and these natural opportunities for healing will arise, and we'll be sensitive to them. So I think that's, in a way, it's our, I don't want to make it too vast, but it feels to me at the moment as if it's our common spiritual practice, now to be that, to have that sensitivity. And it has a quality of freedom from self-preoccupation and self-concern. I'm here with you, for you, as you, in a way. I think our species is moving in that direction, God willing. So it's a little like, I remember that wonderful line of Rumi where he said, be the one who, when you enter the room, luck comes to the one who needs it most.
Ooh.
Be the one who, when you enter the room, luck comes to the one who needs it most. Yeah, that seems to me our path.
Yeah. So thank you so much, and I'm so what you're pointing to, and your suggestion that this, if there is any practice for us going forward, showing up, asking caring questions, and listening, is that. And I love that you're suggesting, and I wonder if you could speak also about how certainly I see this, that healing arises in that witnessing, that the possibility of healing, just like the possibility of luck arriving to the right place, arises in that communion of caring question and listening. Do you also think, and I'm indicating that I sort of suggest here that in addition to healing, there's something else that may be possible, that there is a way forward for us now, humanity, community, there is a way forward for us now that wasn't available before, and that we might understand where we are trending, how we are leading, what is guiding us more clearly through this experience of bearing witness, rather than assuming that we can go out and say, okay, here's how we're going to fix humanity.
Yeah, it is that, isn't it? This, it has this quality of unknowing in it, that we're willing to be open to. What are we open to there? What is it that, it comes back to healing, opportunities for healing arises, but what is that? What's healing what?
Exactly.
What is broken, or what is, it's dedicated to life, isn't it? And life and love, those two words seem to me to be interchangeable in a way, that we're breaking through the separation and distrust and tendency for anger or for me first. And oof, I'm not, Well, you say that it's never been available to us before. Maybe not. Maybe historically there is, it comes in fits and starts. We may have some dark times ahead too, our species, for sure. But something at the same time is arising in us. I mean, perhaps these forms of communication that we have even now, that we can be across the globe and still be present to each other, maybe this is part of it too. That and it's happening in millions of places right now. People are on screens talking or meeting again for the first time, or being being delighted to meet strangers even. Anyway, I don't know if this is the first time. I'm sure it's been happening throughout history of humans making breakthroughs, but it definitely feels like one now.
Yeah.
And notice that this bearing witness of, it's really a return to what I said at the end, that it's selfless. It has a kind of selfless quality, doesn't it? Which is at the heart of all the spiritual or mystical traditions. Selflessness of being present and open to each other. Yeah.
I'd like to step in for a moment and come back and take back this word that was used earlier, the word communion. Of course, in some traditions, communion is viewed very specifically as a sacrament and one of great spiritual importance. And it occurred to me, Elias, in listening to you as you laid out the format of bearing witness, that when you came to that fourth, more or less unnameable event or occurrence or result, that in truth we can, if not take, borrow the sacramental sense of communion to say that when those steps are taken, when we do show up, when we ask caring questions, when we really listen in the way that we have all been trying to over the last many years, that there is a presence of something other that is there, that has inherently an energy, to borrow a word from a previous session, a charm to it, that the word communion fits sacramentally, without waving all of the flags and without having to drink the Kool-Aid or anything else. That simply it occurs. It occurs.
Yeah. The
Nice.
sacred. Yeah, beautifully put.
Beautiful.
Beautifully put. Perhaps that's what, there's that sense of the sacred, of the numinous, of the awesome experience that we're in here, and the beauty of it at the same time, the awesomeness and the intimate beauty of this sacred reality that we're in. Perhaps that's what's charging this unfoldment that, Puran, you're kind of nudging us to see, of humanity's evolution, or consciousness, the evolution of consciousness even, that we humans in this form are sort of pioneering, or at least opening to yeah, this bowing down. I mean, what is it? Isn't that amazing, Suzanne, too? When we bow down, we've talked about that a lot. And we also, like you just did in that, we bow down and we open ourselves in praise and thanksgiving. These two qualities, isn't that beautiful? Perhaps that's the whoosh, another aspect of wishing and wishing.
Yes, I'm lost for words, so I'm keeping quiet.
That's fine. That's fine. a lot of words.
I should say I'm found for words or something rather than lost for words, shouldn't I?
Yeah. And I appreciate very much Isha's referring to story and how he embraced the whole story of wishing and wishing and everything else, and the wonder and wowing, and that's the story too. And that we storytellers are willing to be that light with our storytelling. Perhaps that's something too, isn't it, about our, our love of our words. I mean, goodness, that's what we've got so much of here, and that we can treat lightly and playfully, so that then when the wordless comes, we don't feel bereft of reality. We gaze into each other's eyes, or feel each other's presence, or rest in this amazing occurrence of being and sharing. And
I think that sometimes the word, now the words are coming, but
oh.
sometimes we use the words where actually we're just wanting to share breath. We're just wanting to offer our breath.
Right.
But we can't just go, especially on Zoom, obviously.
Yeah.
Because I was just feeling, after listening to all that you said, Elias, and I was just feeling kind of like bigger and bigger. You know how you get full of breath?
Yeah.
So then I couldn't, it wouldn't work to put words on that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. Silence is the final word, isn't it? Has the final word.
And speaking of the final words, we're winding down in our time. So Elias, before you go, recognizing that this is the last time we'll see you for a while, on screen anyway, since as many of you know, Elias will be on sabbatical for the next 6 months or so. So I'm wondering if there's anything that you want to say to us before you disappear.
Well,
The cat.
Yeah, you can see that. Yeah, everybody will see that. Piles, and the rest of the house has got similar piles of boxes. Although Isha joked when he first saw that, he says, "Oh, you're going to leave all that behind?" He did. Those are my attachments in the boxes, and I'm going to burn them this afternoon in the driveway. Not exactly. Do I have something to say? Oh, do I have something to say? Thank you, each of you, for holding this contemplation so beautifully over these months, and all of you who come to these Sunday journeys of living Sufism and listen so carefully, and have come to the enrichment programs and so on. Thank you. And there's no other last words that fit except for the ones of Murshid Fazl, which is love more. You can always love more. And that's going to guide my sabbatical, and I hope it will guide the rest of my life and yours too. So thank you. Thank you all. God bless.
Thank you, Elias. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Elias.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Well, that leaves the three of us to say goodbye.
And a very big, deep breath with all of that too. Well, I have been holding an image for months that I have wanted to find a way to utilize, and I never successfully found it, so I'm going to use it now. And it's as I say my little goodbye. I borrowed it from, with her permission, from my dear friend, my birth sharing friend, and my personal poet laureate, as I call her, from Jeannie. And it was the idea of what she called a cosmic bowl. And I want to leave that as my last image. So this notion is that all and everything is in this bowl, unimaginably large, unimaginably held. And I hold this bowl. It holds me, in fact. And all and everything, and with all and everything in this incredibly beautiful, solid, dependable cosmic bowl, in that moment, all is absolutely well. Everything is okay. It is perfect, all of it, just as it is. And then for a moment, I think about the pandemic, about the fact that fires are starting again up here in Oregon. I think about some of those things, and suddenly the bowl goes crashing to the floor. Oh my God, here we are again. The bowl has crashed to the floor. What do I do? Well, mysteriously and magically, this cosmic bowl is, even while broken, also present. And so it gathers itself up and it brings everything, all and everything, back together in this perfect bowl. And all again is well. And it will happen again, and it will happen again, and it will happen again. Because in truth, even all the brokenness is held within the bowl. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us, for bearing with us, and maybe we'll see you down the road.
Thank you, Isha. Me next. One of the things that I've noticed in the past 6 months, well, actually, we've been working on this together for longer than 6 months. One of the things that I've noticed looking out at life, at the politics, at the countries, at the world, COVID, everything, is how much of our system, how much of the context that we're living in is based on the adversarial system. And how much of that we've breathed in, how much are kind of taken for granted. Our structures, our schools, our politics, our religions, our education, our children's education. It's all based on who is winning the argument, it seems. History, what we know about history. And what I've found certainly in the last 6 months since we actually started working together on offering this program with Puran, Isha, myself, is how it's not needed, how outmoded it is, and how it felt possible to be with Puran and Isha and myself, for each of us to offer who we were, and for it sometimes to be different to what the other one or one of the other ones, and that it was still held. And that has been extremely, extremely precious to me. And I'm really grateful to Puran and Isha for showing me and, well, encouraging me in everything that I've been doing and offering. I really appreciate that. And I try to breathe out now, loosening and softening the adversarial system, every place where I see it existing. But truly, I do thank you too, friends. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Suzanne. And the gratitude goes all around. And the three of us have experienced something quite wonderful here. Well, now Living Sufism is drawing to a close. We have one more enrichment track session, but the general sessions are now ending. But of course, beloved community doesn't end. Beloved community goes on. And it really requires that this notion, this perspective, this vision of beloved community be hosted in our hearts, and that we continue to host this perspective, this vision, this reality. If we do that, then beloved community continues. On a more sort of practical level, clearly there's been a lot of energy and interest generated through these last months, and that wants to continue. And so, as we've mentioned each time, there is a web space for Living Sufism, which you can find through the sufiway.org website, if you click on programs and Living Sufism. And that web space, including today's session, will stay there. The Whoosh and Whoosh page is up and available for you. And that will just stay there. In addition to that, we're thinking about how do we help the beloved community become more present to itself? How do we help the beloved community become more aware of itself, see itself? And so one thought that we have among a number of ideas that are now sort of percolating is the possibility of developing a podcast channel entitled Beloved Community. If any of you are interested in working with that, let us know. It's just the early stages of envisioning that it might be helpful to have an outlet for audio recordings, at least to begin with. In the spirit of that, in the next week, 10 days, we will send out to all of you an invitation to give us feedback, both on what you have experienced within Living Sufism this time, and what you would like Living Sufism to look like in its next iteration, which we will probably give some sense of what we're doing next sometime in the fall. And also with this idea of how do we make beloved community more self-evident? So I'm hoping that when you receive that email inviting you to give us feedback, that you will do that, and that will help us in our thinking of how we continue this. To close, I'm going to step into my grandfather body. So now I am a grandfather. So now I'm in my grandfather body, and my grandfather body has permission to give advice. My advice to us is, listen to what Elias said. He invited us to look out at the world and see past the traumas, the divisiveness, the warfare, the sense of poverty, of injustice. Look past that to the indications that spirit is rising. Become a part of that. That's my advice to you. And if I could give you one more piece of grandfatherly advice, it would be trust yourself. Trust yourself. You might say, oh, how can I trust him? He's always making mistakes. Then I would say, all right. So then find yourself something within you to trust. Find something within you to trust. Where do I find that? Love more. This is Grandfather Puran wishing you a wonderful summer and thanking you all for your participation. Although you've been on that side of the screen and we're on this side of the screen, this has happened with you, through you, for you, from you, and by you, as much as by us. Thank you so much. It's been a blessing.